got to look at those initial college football playoff rankings. You heard my take. Let's get the take from Uncle Lou. You can catch him, of course, on LouTube. That would be YouTube, but he's transformed it all for himself. Lou, how you doing today?
It's all mine. I own it now. Good morning, Annette. I'm doing good. How are you, Mark?
I am doing great. I appreciate you stopping by, as always. When you got hit with those rankings on Tuesday night, what were your first thoughts?
Well, two things. I'm not surprised that Clemson was number 5. Like I would probably have Clemson at 5. I was a little surprised the playoff committee did that. I mean, I know that you read over their list of guidelines, and we can argue whether they even go by those guidelines or not. But when you look over the list of guidelines that they say they use, nowhere on there does it say, well, let's look what they did last year. But it's impossible to completely block that out, though, I think, as a human. I mean, you can't just, block out of your mind the fact that Clemson hasn't lost a game since 2017. But it looks like they found a way to do it, because I think if you just look at this year, I think 5 is about right for Clemson. I just can't believe the playoff committee actually put them there. Now, it doesn't matter. They're going to be where they need to be. If they win, they have no chance of getting left out at 13-0, so they don't have to worry about that. And the other thing that surprised me was Oklahoma. What they done, ain't they? They got no chance. How are they ever going to get into the top 4? There'll be two Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams are going to be ahead of Oklahoma the rest of the season. There's nothing Oklahoma can do.
So you think Penn State with a narrow loss, and obviously LSU and Alabama, that loser is still very much in play, but do you think Penn State's earned enough respect?
They will have, I mean, they play Minnesota this week. I don't think that's a great win. The playoff committee kind of crapped on Minnesota too, but it's going to be, they seem to not really differentiate between a top 10 win and a top 25 win. Really, they sort of just look at it. At least that's what it seems like. Especially like if you look at 1 and 2, LSU's got a couple of better wins than Ohio State, but they each have 2 top 25 wins. But anyway, I think Penn State will have opportunities to do what they need to do, whereas Oklahoma won't, outside of, beating Baylor by 30 points twice, which I don't think anyone's going to be impressed by. But, Penn State beats Minnesota and beats Ohio State and then beats Wisconsin, or even the loser of Penn State, Ohio State. I just don't see how Oklahoma unless there's some kind of a blowout. Like last year, the 29-0 thing between LSU and Bama. If we see something like that with LSU and Bama, or Penn State, Ohio State, maybe Oklahoma finds a way to sneak in, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, we hear this term quality win, and somebody asked me about it the other night, and they were saying, I don't consider this a quality win. That's a quality win. I said, well, you can't just say these are quality wins. That's all on the white side, and then this is black and white. These are quality wins. And I said there are varying degrees to quality wins. And what you just pointed out, if somebody goes out there and beats a Florida, Auburn, a team that I consider to be a top 10 type team, Oregon, somebody like that, that's a certain level of quality win. If you go out there and beat Oklahoma State, Kansas State, sure, those are good teams. Those should be considered to a certain extent, but those are more like top 25 wins to me, and they're varying degrees to quality wins. So where does that stand for you?
Well, like a lot of people don't want to give Ohio State any credit for the Cincinnati win, but obviously the committee does. I mean, they have Cincinnati at 20, I think.
Yeah.
They have Cincinnati at 20, and you beat them 42-0. So it might not mean anything to random typer troll, but it obviously means something to the committee. And then you look at the Wisconsin game; they have Wisconsin at 12. Ohio State beat them by 30 points. Again, compare that to LSU. And LSU's got a great schedule and great wins, but they beat Auburn by 3 and they beat Florida by 14. Ohio State beat Wisconsin by 30 and Cincinnati by 42. So, and here's the other thing. You can find any one reason why they're wrong about a team, but the committee doesn't look at just one thing. They look at a whole bunch of different things. Eye test is part of it, and Ohio State wins that hands down. They've got a much better defense, I think, than LSU. Offensively, maybe they're even. Maybe LSU has a little bit of an edge. I don't know. But Ohio State's top 5 in offense and defense in every single category known to man. But I mean, look, LSU can go beat Alabama by 1 point this weekend. They're going to be number 1 next week. So not really worth getting bent out of shape about.
Yeah, so it would seem to be that if LSU goes to Alabama, that would be the formula for the SEC. If you're just an SEC fan and you root for Tennessee, South Carolina, whoever, you just want the SEC to get two teams in. The LSU loss at Alabama with the Texas win and with them playing on the road against Alabama seems to be the way you want to go rather than Alabama losing that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Alabama can lose this one and get in like they did in 17, because I don't know really what win they'll have at that point to prop them up. Auburn, that might not be very impressive when Auburn is sitting at 4 losses at the end of the year, assuming they were to lose to Georgia and Alabama. So I don't know, and that makes the Tua thing that much more interesting for this weekend. How close is he to 100%? Is he 100%? What if he re-injures it in this game and they lose? What is the playoff committee? They've said in the past they'll take injuries into account, which I think is a little bit ridiculous because every team is injured. There ain't a team that's not injured. So, yeah, Tua's a big part of Alabama's offense, but so is whoever team's left tackle. Are they going to take that into account for a random team? No, they're not. So I don't really think they should count in, next man, every coach says it, next man up. Playoff committee should get on board too. But so it's going to be tough for Alabama. I don't care one way or the other about. I mean, I am an SEC homer. I root for the SEC when they're playing non-SEC, but I don't care about the SEC getting 2 teams in or not. I don't go that far with it, and I doubt that's going to happen. I think Clemson, Ohio State, and maybe Oregon. I don't know. If Oregon is 12-1, how do you put somebody in there ahead of them that didn't win their division? I mean, I know we've seen that before with other teams, but man, I don't know. A close loss in basically a road game to Auburn. I mean, let's just be real. How many people came from Oregon? I mean, not very many people go to the Oregon games in Oregon. They're not coming down here. So I don't know. And I mean, I'm an Oregon fan. Do I think is whoever loses the Alabama LSU game better than Oregon? Yeah. So I don't know. It just depends. I mean, what do they? It just depends what they decide to actually look at that particular week. I guess I don't know. It's going to be a mess either way, especially with Oklahoma being at 9. Because I don't know now how they can move Oklahoma ahead. I mean, how do you move Oklahoma from 9 to 4 just because LSU loses to Bama by 3 and Penn State loses to Ohio State by 3? How do you do that? I don't see how you do it.
You're looking for a big win, meaning a big win out of Alabama or LSU or Ohio State or Penn State, and then you're looking for Baylor to stay clean other than their losses to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Is basically what you're looking for. But yeah, Oregon, obviously, the hope for the Pac-12 is Utah stays clean. They've got an 11-1 versus 11-1 conference championship game, so Oregon can look as good as possible, look like the better team, like they didn't luck into a win, but don't beat Utah too bad, because then everybody's going to be saying, well, Utah wasn't really that good.
Yeah. And you need Utah to win out if you're Oregon. Yeah. I mean, you need to be playing an 11-1 Utah team in that Pac-12 title game,
Absolutely. Got Uncle Lou on the line talking college football. We looked at the rankings, just came out on a Tuesday. Before we let those go, was there anything egregious out there, anything that you thought was kind of crazy about these rankings, or any message you think's being sent?
No, I mean, I think Oklahoma's better than the 9th team, and I don't think there's 8 teams better than Oklahoma. I understand why they're number 9, but because they don't just do the eye test thing, they look at these metrics and all this kind of stuff. But like, the only team I could be a fan of, I think, where I would really be mad right now is if I was an Oklahoma fan, because I don't see how they get in. And so other than that, I mean, anything outside of the top 10, really, what does it matter? I mean, yeah, Baylor and Minnesota could run the table, and if they do, they'll get in even then. So we don't even really have to be mad about that. But I would be upset if I was Oklahoma. That's really it. I don't have a problem with anything else they did.
Yeah, of course, the big outlier was in year one, 2014. Ohio State, I believe, was 16th in the first rankings, and they've been the one to skyrocket and win the whole thing. But they are the only one. And it's kind of funny to think Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M were in the top 4 in the very first one that was released.
Can I ask you something? Because you're a little. I try to get you on my show. I'm not going to tell the people that you're dodging me, which you are. But I've been trying to get you on. But because you're smarter than me, coast to coast with college football. What are they going to do about the group of 5? How are they going to pick one of those teams?
Yeah, I don't know what the breakdown is. The rankings, their rankings are going to determine.
Is that what they go by? Okay. So because you got about 5 or 6 teams there, I can't really tell them apart.
You're going to stack them all up.
SMU, Cincinnati, Boise State. I don't know. That's going to be a mess to see which one of those teams. Which one do you like?
Well, I think that Memphis head against SMU stands out now.
Yeah. They have a Power 5 win too, even though it's against Ole Miss. I'm sure they'll count that for something.
Although if Cincinnati can clear out the American Conference and they only lose to the number 1 or 2 team in the country, even though it was 42-0.
Yeah.
They're not losing to them any different than Wisconsin and Michigan State losing to Ohio State at this point, the way they're dusting off everyone.
Can't believe your Florida State boys didn't mention Luke Fickell last night. What's it going to take for somebody to go get him? Head coach at Cincinnati. What are they waiting on?
He turned around that program in a hurry.
Yeah, went 11-2 last year, first year there.
Yeah. Well, he went 4-8 out of the gate.
Who? Fickell?
Fickell.
I thought he started there in 18.
No, he had a 4-8 season.
Oh, so he started
first season. He took over a bad program, had the 1 year, and then got him rolling last year. Yeah.
He won't be there long.
It doesn't appear so. They have a nice little program going there in Cincinnati.
No doubt.
Alabama-LSU. So it's just crazy to think that in about 3 years, these two offenses have completely been transformed. So LSU's caught up with Alabama from that standpoint, from the approach standpoint, and now they almost mirror each other to a certain extent. So in 9-6 game in 2011 becomes a whatever game, 38-35, 42-38 this year. And I have difficulty, except for knowing that Alabama's at home and they've owned this series and they may have some kind of psychological edge, maybe. I have difficulty differentiating these two teams.
LSU has looked like the better team to me all year. And in the beginning, we talked about, the playoff committee, they're not supposed to look at last year. I can't help it. Not just last year, the last 8 years or whatever. And then last year 29-0, and that was in LSU. I want to be able to pick LSU in this game because I really think they're the better team. I've had LSU ranked higher in my personal poll. I think they're better. They look better. But I can't do it. I can't pick LSU to win the game outright. I took them in the 6 points, hoping maybe they can keep it close. But the only thing really that would surprise me is if somebody wins this game by 3 touchdowns. I don't see that happening. I think it'll be a good game, but I tried to pick LSU. I just can't forget, mainly last year, but all the other years, it's just so hard to win there in Tuscaloosa. And then you got the Tua injury, but I don't know. I just couldn't do it. So I picked Alabama to win outright, but I took LSU in the 6 points.
Yeah, pretty much what we've seen out of Alabama at home since that 2011 LSU game is you needed like superhuman efforts out of Johnny Manziel and Cam Newton the year before. Those are all-time great college quarterbacks. And then the fluke of a game against Ole Miss when Alabama turned it over about 18 times in the first quarter, got way behind and almost caught them at the end. And that's it for losing football games in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, and it just makes it so hard to try to pick LSU in this game. Even though, like I said, no disrespect to any LSU fans who see this or whatever. I honestly believe LSU is the better team. But like you said, sometimes a mental edge goes one way or the other. We saw that with Kentucky and Florida. I mean, Kentucky should have beat Florida about 3 out of the last 6 years, but they couldn't get over that hump for whatever reason. And like I said, maybe it's a mental type thing. They finally got over it a couple years ago, but so I don't know if this game, it just seems like if this game is close in the fourth quarter, how many of those people over on the LSU sideline are sitting around going, here we go again. So I don't know. It's going to be, I can't wait to watch it. I hope it lives up to the hype. We haven't had very many of these games of the century this season, and it seems like there's a new one every week. We haven't had very many that have lived up to the hype. I thought Georgia Notre Dame was good. I still think Texas LSU, even though Texas has fallen off the map, I still think that was probably the most entertaining game of the year so far. Texas and LSU. I'd love to see some. Wouldn't you love to see that game this weekend? What we saw with Texas. I mean, wouldn't you love that? A 42-38 or something type of man. I would love that.
I want to see it.
God, that would be so good. So I just hope we get a really good game.
Because I know when I see that out of SEC teams, I know that they're playing NFL defensives and they're executing on offense to the highest degree to make that happen. We're not seeing Big 12 blown coverages, guys that refuse to tackle, all that kind of garbage in the secondary that anybody, you and I, could go out there and throw routes and score 30 or 40 points with outbreaking a sweat. You know that it's done against the best, and it takes, throws in tight windows, execution, wide receivers high point the football against first round NFL cornerbacks. It's you look at these DB wide receiver matchups on both sides, LSU and Alabama, and it's just crazy good.
It's like watching a Pro Bowl. I mean, it's that good here. And hey, what do you think the over under is on the number of quick slants over the middle we're going to see in this game? I'm going to put it at about 20. Both these teams, man, a 6-yard slant ends up a 65-yard touchdown. How many times with both of these two teams with that RPO that they run, they just yank the ball out of the running back's stomach and hit, in Alabama's case, Jerry Jeudy. LSU's got a couple too. And I mean, they catch that ball in stride and they're gone. And it's hard to cover that. Even if you have elite DBs. Florida hit us with it a couple of times last week in the second half to Freddie Swain over the middle. And I mean, a couple of times our DB was all over the guy. And there's just, if that play is executed right, it's just almost impossible to stop. And Alabama and LSU run it at an extremely high level. I can't wait to watch this game. It's going to be so good. I hope Tua is 100%. I hope we end up getting a good game. I hope it's not a blowout. This is one of those games, man, that if it turns out the way we want it to, I mean, you could still remember this game 4, 5, 6 years down the road. I hope it lives up to it.
So, Lou, I know you're happy about the win against the Gators. Of course, Florida looked like they had a little bit of momentum coming into the game, like they were playing like on an upsurge, and Georgia had maybe not shown us as much as we expected. But when they hit the field, Georgia was clearly the better team, not by a ton, but decidedly the better team. But when you watch that game versus what LSU and Alabama bring to the table in terms of offense, are you worried about that game in Atlanta?
Well, I'm always worried about the SEC championship game, no matter how good we are and no matter who we're playing, because you're going to be playing one of the best 4 or 5 teams in America almost on any given year. I mean, it's very rare if somebody wins the SEC West with, and they're ranked 15 or something. I mean, usually the SEC West is putting out a pretty good team for that title game. So it always worries me. Defensively for Georgia, I don't really have any worries at all. I don't see how you can watch Georgia play this year and have any worries, really. Do I think we could shut Alabama or LSU down? No. They're not scoring 40-something points. That's just not happening, period. I'd bet my last dollar on it. We haven't given, how long has it been? 20-something years? We haven't given up a rushing touchdown this season. No other team in the last 20 years has gone this far into the season without giving up a rushing touchdown. We haven't given up more than 2 total touchdowns in a game all year. That's it. So the defense is playing at an extremely high level. So I think talent-wise, they're where they need to be. Combined with, look, Kirby's done some boneheaded things. So I know I'm going to hear about that in the comment section when I say this. But defensively, Kirby Smart knows what he's doing. I don't doubt him at all, especially in the second half. Usually, all but twice. But anyway, so the point is, I don't doubt the defense fall. Offensively, I still have some questions. I thought the offense played better against Florida, and Jake Fromm deserves a ton of credit. Probably his best game of his career was against Florida. Second best game of his career was probably Florida last year. So, and he's 3-0 against Florida. And as a Georgia fan, it's hard not to be happy about that. I want to be convinced and sold, but he missed a lot of passes in that game. The reason Georgia scored so many field goals in the first half was because of Jake Fromm. He missed several wide open touchdown throws. That didn't come back to bite us because our defense was getting Florida. Florida was 3 and out the entire first half, and we played the entire first half on Florida's side of the field position. Got flipped early in the first half of that game, and Florida could never get out of their own end zone, basically, on offense. So Jake Fromm played really, really good. I don't knock him or doubt him, but there are some better teams down the road for Georgia, especially if Georgia gets to where they want to go, which is the SEC title game and then maybe even the playoffs. There are some better teams than Florida. So I don't think anybody would blow Georgia out because of our defense. But I think there are a lot of teams that would be favored by 6 or 7 points over Georgia: Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, hell, probably Oklahoma. So I'm not convinced that Georgia's going 14-1 and winning a national title. That's what I want, obviously. I 100% expect Georgia to win the East. That's the minimum goal I had at the beginning of the season. There's no excuse for that not happening. And I don't expect Georgia to lose another game. Not to Texas A&M at home, not to Auburn on the road. Auburn's got no offense. Texas A&M's got no nothing. So Georgia should win out and show up in Atlanta at 11-1. And at that point, it's a roll of the dice. We win, we go to the playoffs. We lose, we go to another game, and half the players will quit and not show up and all that like last year. But I like where we're at right now. I'd rather be undefeated, but the reality is that loss really doesn't matter. We win our games, we're getting in. I like where we're at. I want to see the offense continue to improve over the next couple of weeks against, Missouri and then in Texas A&M and Auburn and Georgia Tech, and we'll see what we can do in Atlanta. We'll roll the dice. I heard we were getting blown out last year when we played Alabama. I heard we were getting blown out the year before in the national title game. I heard we were getting blown out by Oklahoma. I heard we were going to get blown out by Auburn in the SEC title game in 2017. You're not blowing Georgia out. Just stop. So can Georgia lose? Yes. You're not blowing us out. Sorry.
What might have been weaved in there is a little early betting advice from Lou that if Georgia loses the SEC championship game, goes to a bowl game, that unless they've corrected something, or maybe the culture in the locker room, maybe taking those 12 or 13 points with the likes of Texas or somebody like that might be a good play.
Yeah, and do it early, as soon as the line comes out, before half the team decides they're not going to play in the game.
All right. If you watch me, you love college football. You're probably a nerd when it comes to college football, and you probably watch this guy. And if you don't, it's Uncle Lou. Look it up on YouTube, and you will find him. And it's always good stuff. Good conversation. Appreciate the talk, Lou. Appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, it's always a great time. You owe me. I've been trying to get you on my show. I'm going to start telling these people to start hounding you. You need to come on the Uncle Lou show. Thank you. I would appreciate that. And so would the people. Maybe a few people will see you that don't know you already, which would be ideal. You know what I mean?
With the way clubs are increasing by the minute, I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, we need to get you on, and to the Florida State guy in the middle on your Florida State show. I just want to tell him good morning and I would love to see him dressed up like the white Tonto and thrown onto that horse. So he can throw that flaming toothpick down in the center of the field. But in all seriousness, and I know you got to go, it's completely ridiculous that they can't get an Indian on that horse. There's no, I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear nothing. It's completely ridiculous. I don't have no problem with the name Seminoles or Redskins. That's not what this is. The Seminole Nation even blesses Florida State using it and all that. But put an Indian on that horse. And I mean, we serious. I know there's some down there, because that's why they're called the Seminoles. There's casinos and everything else. So find an Indian, put him on that horse, quit painting up these white frat boys like Tonto, and then they give them a scholarship. Mark, what? Now, come on. Now you can't tell me there's not an Indian somewhere that would love a scholarship to Florida State. Find an Indian, put him on that horse, get that white frat boy off of there. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Lou, I'm glad you took it over, because we could have been on for 2 hours and I wasn't going in that direction. You know that. All right. We'll see you, man.
All right. Thanks.